back in Matthew chapter 5. It's a delight to see you. It really is. We are scattered, and we know that we're in the midst of another whole new situation. They continually use the word crisis, but you can only have so much crisis before it comes mundane and regular. And so we're right in the middle of that. There's a lot of folks out, a lot of folks sick, and a lot of folks trying to keep from getting anybody else sick. So we understand that. Just do the best you can. Use common sense. Stay healthy as much as you possibly and humanly can. The Matthew series that we started was about Beatitudes. The word Beatitude, makurios, to be happy, to be blessed, to be happy independent of any other circumstance in our life. That's what makurios is. Jesus opened his first address. First public statement he made was, fellas, sit down and listen. Come sit down. Blessed are the, let's see, how many of you have been here both weeks? You've been here both weeks, so you should be able to help me. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are who? Oh, merciful. I forgot. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Blessed are they when they are persecuted for righteousness' sake. And blessed are you when you are reviled and all manner of evil spoken against you. So, we're talking about poor in spirit. We're talking about those who mourn. We're talking about the meek. We're talking about hunger and thirsting for righteousness. We're talking about merciful. We're talking about peacemakers. We're talking about persecution. All of these things combined Jesus into saying this: you got to have a good attitude. And this attitude begins with a beatitude. The Beatitudes are something that you have within you because of your relationship with Christ, but something that you are learning as well. In other words, I gain more. The more I'm merciful, the more mercy comes to me, right? How many of you have the gift of mercy, by the way? I mean, you know that you have the gift of mercy. When someone else hurts, you're hurting with them. Anybody have the gift of? Surely there's one human being in this church. We need somebody with that gift, because see, some of us don't have it. Pastor Benny, your hand is up. You have the gift of mercy. The gift of mercy and the gift of discernment, sometimes they collide. See, the person with the gift of mercy will look at someone and say, oh, bless your heart. One of my pastors at Alma, he just had a lovely way. Someone would be hurting and he could do this. And I've told you, oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's not, well, I'm hurting today. Oh, okay. But the gift of mercy and the gift of discernment, it's just like, let's say that all of these gifts are sitting at the table. There's mercy sitting there. There's discernment sitting there. All of these gifts are there. The gift of knowledge. The waiter comes, he's bringing us all our drinks, and which are all water and sweet tea, by the way. We set it down, and he's almost there to set it down, and he spills the entire thing. The guy with the gift of mercy, or the gal with the, jumps up and grabs everybody's napkins and gets on the floor and starts helping. Now, don't you worry about that. We're going to help you fix that up. The guy with the discernment says, I saw it right off. Saw what you was about to do right there. Didn't you? You've tripped over that twice. I saw it right off. See, there's no mercy with him. But this makeup of these words or sections or framing of thought are Beatitudes, makurios, meaning I'm going to be independent of anything else that can make me happy. Nothing can make you happy. No one can make you happy. No one can change your circumstances outside of God and His grace in your life as you experience these. And just as I was sitting there, a text came in, Miss Vicky, sick, down sick, family sick. She, I pray nobody else gets sick. Well, and that's exactly what we are praying for. When we hear it, oh, someone's sick. Renee sick. Renee, COVID. This can be bad. There are certain chromosomic things that are with us that some just going to get really sick and some aren't. There are some that are having trouble and not having trouble. But whatever it is, and however it is, whatever it's standing for, I am telling you the only answer to this problem is going to be you surrendering with a beatitude, a makarios attitude that says, Father, I don't understand what all's going through me right now, what all's happening to me right now. I don't understand all the thunder and lightning and mess in my life and the storms, but I surrender myself to you. That's the makarios. Then he says, because of that, there are two distinctive things about every believer, whether it's those who are poor in spirit, those who are mourning, those who are meek, and those who are hungering and thirsting for righteousness, or those who are merciful, or those who are pure in heart, or those who are being persecuted, and those who are peacemakers. The eight group of makarios, we've got to be two things. They're very distinctive things. One is salt. Now, I'm still reviewing from last week. If you remember that, salt had two purposes. And they did not refine salt like they do today, evaporating salt, cloud water out of the ground. They had to mill it. And it was quite a process. And a lot of the salt was impure. And if it didn't have the right, they would throw it out and they would use it a walking surface. And so he said, what is salt if it's lost its savor? So the first distinction about every believer is that we are salt. We are good. And the thing about cooking up anything is you're going to have some salt. I mean, you've got to have salt. We've talked about that before. When we ministered in Australia, there was never a salt shaker on any table. We were there for 15, 16 days. Never a salt shaker. You had to always ask for salt or pepper. Why? Because it was offensive to them for you to grab a salt shaker and start putting salt and pepper in their stuff. So they never salted anything. Never. And worst food of any country I've ever been to is in Australia. You try to eat grilled kangaroo with no salt and no pepper on there. We are to be a distinctive, a savor. That makes it pop a little bit. Too much makes your blood pressure rise. Too much sodium, we get that. But the problem with us is keeping this makarios attitude and being salt. In a culture that is decaying, it needs the distinctiveness of salt. And he said not only that, but you are light. You are the light of the world because the world is absolutely dark. John talks about this darkness and the light of Jesus Christ shines in upon us. And the world in its darkness does not comprehend light. Light and darkness cannot coexist. We talked about the presence of life and how light curves and makes rainbows. How that the violet, the blue, the indigo colors are the shortwave links of that rainbow. And how light travels 186,000 miles per second to make light. Now, you are light. You say, I don't feel very light today. Go back to the makarios. And come into a feeling or an existence or a reframing of who I am today and who you are today. Because I'm going to tell you, if you don't have these two distinctives, you can't be what I'm going to talk about next, which let's get into it. Yeah, you're salt, you're light. But then he goes on with this deal of not only are the distinctive with the salt and the light, but you've heard it said. You have heard it said. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Do not think that I came to destroy the law of the prophets. It was never the intention of Jesus to abrogate the law. And when we say, well, Christ came and put an end to the law, not necessarily true. The law is still true. It's still there. We read much of it in the Old Testament. But the Torah is still alive today, and Orthodox Jewish people still read from the Torah. But don't think I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot and one tittle. The jot and the tittle are the two smallest letters of the Hebrew alphabet. In fact, they're a half letter. One is just a dash. The other is like the crossing of a T. It can change the entire meaning of a word, jot and tittle. He says, listen, the smallest letters of the law, even the half letter of law, it will all vanish and pass away before this law is fulfilled. Whosoever therefore breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men to do so shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say to you that unless your righteousness is exceeding the Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, stop. What's he going for, this first address? He starts off with this, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. You've got the idea. The markurios. The things that you have within you, the things that you're trying to become, that's the markurios. Standing independently of any earth situation, needing to make you happy, needing to change your circumstance. When things go right, when things go well, when things go in your way, when a check does come in the mail, or when you do get a windfall, and everything's right, do you sometimes, because of the culture of this life that we're living now, I wonder what happened that it went right. I wonder how this wasn't supposed to go this way. We're almost living in a culture by which we expect things just to go wrong, don't we? Surely you do. You ever pull up to the fine cuisine restaurant and push the little red button? How it comes out? Or through the drive-thru? And sometimes when you start the first sentence of a drive-thru restaurant, quick food, you can look at your wife or your husband and say, we're going to have trouble. Just when it starts, you know that this is not going to work out right. But when something does work and we say, wow, what happened? This actually worked. That's the sort of thing that we're looking at today in this culture, where we just don't know if anything's going to work right ever again. And we've become very pessimistic, have we not? We're becoming very pessimistic about everything. Why? Because the world continually tells us every day, this is not working. I just read last night, Moderna now has said we are preparing the fourth booster. The fourth booster. Does that sink into you in any way, shape, or form that maybe this is not working quite right, quite well? So we're pessimistic about everything. Hogs go to the line last night. We got one last shot. We got 5 seconds left. We can still win this thing. But I before it ever started, Miss Laura was keeping me up with the ball game, what was happening, but I watched some of the retake on the news. And before he even started the fake free throw to try to get the ball back, you know what I said? It ain't going to work. Why? Because I'm pessimistic. Why? Because this culture is demanding that I become that way. It wants us to feel as though there is no hope, there is no help, that it's going to be even worse tomorrow than it was today. But I am telling you that when Jesus enters this, he says, you folks that are putting all your hope in the law, and yet you can't live by it, if you don't do any better than the scribes and Pharisees are doing, you're never going to enter into heaven. It's never going to work. And the scribes and the Pharisees put all of this life that they could into their ability to keep this law. So Jesus says, verse 21, yeah, you've heard it heard of old. You have heard it said of old, you shall not murder. And he's moving into something to prove the law. Something about this idea of, I've got to do better than everybody else. I've got to be able to keep this. I've got to be able to say, I can do good, I can do good, I can do good. Jesus said, you've heard it heard of old. You've heard it of old. That you should not murder. And whoever murders will be in the danger of the judgment. But I say to you, that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Rakah, R-A-C-A, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says you fool shall be in danger of hellfire. All right, number one, we're going to talk about murder. Murder does not begin with blood on our hands. Murder begins in the mind. And that's what Jesus is saying. You are so worried about keeping this law that you go back to the 10 Commandments, and one of them says, thou shalt not kill. Okay, that's the law. So when you look at that, everything else but that, we're not worried about. But I'm going to keep this one thing. See, that's the problem with keeping the law. You figure out which part of it you're going to live and hold to. And Jesus says, listen, I'm telling you, murder does not start with bloody hands. Murder begins in the mind. All sin begins in the mind. Whenever you think about anything that's a sin, Imagination is a wonderful thing. It's a God-given gift. But it turns into a tragic, perverted thing by choice. See, when you decide to look at things that are not pure and holy or right, it's a choice. Murder is a choice. Now, in our system today, as messed up as it is, it's just like if you have a favorite restaurant, never go in the kitchen. Just never go in the kitchen. Never go in the kitchen. You want to see justice play out, go to a few courtrooms in the country today, and it's mind-boggling what is happening in our country today. We're not only deciding that we're male and female based on how we feel, but we're activating judges to make decisions based on how we feel or based on what our culture should say. Even in the Supreme Court, making decision on COVID yesterday, whether we have the right to do mandates or no mandates. But what I'm saying to you is, as much as we want to have law, as much as we want to have peace, as much as we want to have a civil government, there's a lot of things wrong. Jesus says, listen, murder does not begin in the act itself. Murder begins in the mind. He's refuting what they're believing about the law, their interpretation of holding to the law and not to grace. But I say to you, whoever is angry with his brother without a cause is in danger of judgment just as much. And so the fight here is, well, okay then, thinking about murder is the same as murder, so I might as well just go and kill you. No, that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying both are going to be judged. Both are going to be judged. It's just like your thought life. And that's why I say imagination is a wonderful thing. All of us have that, right? We have an imagination. I still think back to the days when I would play either cops and robbers. If we played cops and robbers and we went to the old 46 Ford my grandpa had parked, and I was the getaway guy, I was the driver. But if we're on a Roy Rogers day, I rode our propane tank. All of my pants were silver all through here because I could swing up on the saddle horn there, and here we'd go. And we were in the war. We were in the fight. That's imagination. It's pure. It's wonderful. But when you, by choice, allow that imagination to go to a perverted thought and live there, that's by choice. And that's what Romans 1 is all. For when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imagination. Their foolish heart was darkened. And professing themselves to be wise, they became as fools. Why? By choice. By choice. And that's why ridiculous argument that I can feel my way to be a woman, or you can feel your way to be a man if you are a woman, or that you can identify as this when you're that, denying basic biology is a perverted imagination. That's what he says. It's a perverted imagination. Jesus says, listen, you guys, you're going to hold on to this law. I'm telling you, murder doesn't start with the act. Murder starts in the mind. Then he moves on. I say to you, verse 23, therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Agree with your adversary quickly while you are on the way with him, lest your adversary deliver you to the judge and the judge hand you over to the officer and you are thrown in prison. I say to you, you will by no means get out of there until you have paid the last penny. Now, the adversary is over a financial deal, right? That's what it is. Agree with your adversary quickly. Now, murder begins in the mind. Money. It's funny how that Jesus ties these two together. Wait till the next one. The word is marriage. Leave your gift. No. Jesus, you ought to understand, on the Sabbath day, when we walk in with our gift, buddy, that's a special time. We are obeying the law. Everyone watches us. Everyone sees what we're giving, and we put it in there. And the little bells on the bottom of our breeches are tingling and letting us see it, and we drop our money in there. I have tithed. Do you know that the rabbis actually would tithe? Scribes and Pharisees would actually tithe. Go out to their garden, even in the herb garden, the herbs, and they would tithe off of each of those herbs. 1/10 of this will go to that. Oh, and they were so proud of that. Now, that's a good thing that you tithe because we've been commanded to do that. But again, it does not begin with the act itself. It begins with the heart. It begins with the mind and the heart of why am I doing this? Why am I giving in the first place? So, when it comes to murder, it doesn't start there. It starts in the mind. Every act starts in the mind. Did you know that every sin starts in the mind? And in fact, he goes on to talk in the next little portion about the eye. How that the eye, if it offends you, pluck it out. Why? Because it becomes your enemy. Because of what you're seeing, because you allow imagination to become perverted. When it becomes perverted by choice, then you begin to do things that are wrong. You begin to think things that are wrong. The worst spot you can be in your life is when you begin to think, maybe you're tired, maybe you're overworked, you're exhausted, you're going through a horrible situation, and all of a sudden you begin to see something and say, I deserve that. I've been through a lot. You are a candidate for disaster. I deserve this. I should get this because when you drive by a car lot and you're depressed or discouraged because you're making it's making funny noises or a bump or a squeak, and all of a sudden you look over there and say, you know what, I deserve. Now I've worked hard. I deserve a brand new one right now. I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying you shouldn't. What I am saying is you're in a bad place. The moment you believe that you are deserving of something just because, that's when bad things happen in our lives. That's when we allow things to go on that have no business going on. Let me put it down further. When he says, agree with your adversary quickly, put the money down, Jesus says it's more important to reconcile than it is to give the money to begin with. More important to reconcile. So, let's lay the money down. Jesus says, lay the money down, which is the whole act of them presenting this money in order to fulfill the commandment, living by the law. I have to set this aside. Yeah, but it's not as important as you being right with everybody else. What's it worth to you to be at peace at night with everybody that lives and breathes? What's it worth to you? How well are you sleeping at night in your conversations, your adversarial problems with others? Lay it all down and say, listen, we need to make this right. I'm wrong. And I need to make this right. Jesus says that's more important, reconciliation, than it is to give the gift in the first place. So he moves to the second part of that. Not only is the reconciliation important, but it's important to do it now. The longer you wait, you ever stick your foot in your mouth? You ever say too much? You ever say something that may have been right, but at the wrong time? The longer you wait to fix it, the harder it gets to fix. By day 3 or 4, it's, oh, heck with it anyway. They deserve it. When the Spirit stops dealing with you about your mouth and the things that you say to other people, he said, you need to agree with your adversaries quickly. Because if you don't, the longer you wait, the harder it is. How many of you are good at saying I'm sorry? Anybody very good at it? I mean, really good at it? Boy, I'm sorry. It's just hard to come out, isn't it? 3 hardest words in the world. I'm sorry, I was wrong in Worcestershire. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because I'm telling you, now, I'm not new here anymore, okay? I know I still feel kind of, some of y'all are prideful. And it's hard. So, were you wrong? Well, not really. Technically, I was not wrong. What happened here, you see, is, can you just be wrong? But see, Britt, in your world, you don't have that. You hit a wrong chord, I'm on you. I got it. It was wrong. Yeah, but you see, what? No, it was wrong. And it's so easy to do, is it not? One move, and it's wrong. But yet Jesus says you guys would rather push by everybody that you have frustrated and created a nightmare for so that you can be seen with this gift. One day, it was all set up, and I was so excited about it. I presented it all wrong. I walked out and I said, tonight is my honor to announce an anonymous gift of $500,000 made by Orville and Theda Blaylock. What was wrong with what I just said? Anonymous and Orville and Theda Blaylock. You can't get any more. And I began, as I left that, because I knew I'm going to have to face family, a series of things in my mind. Do y'all do that? We're like, this is what I could say. I went insane. I mean, I am not responsible. There's nothing. I was wrong. I go back to the back, and they're looking at me. And they said, well, okay. That's what. The biggest thing I was to do that day was to announce this anonymous gift of Orville and Theda. And it didn't happen. I'm wrong, okay? I'm wrong. And Jesus says, I wish you guys one time would just say I'm wrong. But because you won't, you're going to give the gift and expect God to bless it. Now, okay, murder does not begin in the act. Murder begins in the mind. Money. Everything that's in your pocket. I mean, all the money. I don't even have my billfold. Brother Benny, you got your billfold?
Not there. It's in the truck. I knew what you're preaching on.
Wow, I got ousted there, didn't I? Cecil, you got a bill? You got your bill? Does anybody have any money in here? Now, this is not mine, is it not? Oh. Anybody lose a billfold? Okay, I'm not going to open it. What I'm saying is, everything that you own, everything you possess, Pastor, you will repay. I will get you back. He was supposed to, but on his, I was going to take out cash, and you. This is not mine. I'm not emotionally attached to it in any way, shape, or form, right? Therefore, it would be easy for me to open it up, and Miss Jan would say, hey, honey, just go get you some new perfume. Get you a new pair of shoes. Well, it's not mine. What do I care? But you see, those of you who hold what is in your hand, it belongs to him. It's not just this tithe you're walking up there with. It belongs, everything you have. The person next to you, the car that you're in, the clothes on your back, the shoes you're wearing. It all belongs to him. And that's all he's saying to the Pharisees about. It's not just what you're going to hand out. It's that everything belongs to him. When we walk in this place, it all belongs to him. Now, you got a favorite place to sit, but honey, you don't own it. You know what I'm saying? It belongs to him. That's why we're to be curators and great caretakers of it. So, murder does not begin with the act. Murder begins in the mind, in the heart. I hate you so much that I want to do this. Money does not, and the giving of it does not belong to you. It belongs to him. It begins again. Why do you give in the first place? Well, because I'm told to. Christians got to give money. Preachers always talking about it. Always got to do this. No, I'm telling you. And I mean this with the bottom up, not trying to be funny. If that's why you give and how you give, are you seriously expecting God to bless that in any way, shape, or form? Because every time we put money in, every time we give a resource to another human being, we're asking God to use what little we gave and bless it, multiply it, use it. The widow gave out of her poverty, not out of riches, not expecting to be more poor, but expecting God to honor his word in her heart. That's why it's hard to be a Pharisee. It's hard to be, no, I'm giving my money. Everybody in town's mad at me, but I don't care because the law says I got to give. Now, last thing and we close, marriage. You have heard it said that those of old that you should not commit adultery, but I say to you, whoever looks at a woman to lust with her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out, cast it from you. It shall be more profitable for you than the members that perish. For that's your whole body to be cast out into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Now, Jesus is not advocating amputation. He's making a point to those who live by this law, that if you're going to live by the law, hey, lay her out there. I had a friend who was a pipe welder in Saudi Arabia. One day in town, he saw this huge commotion, and he goes down there to see what in the world's going on. He grabbed the guy, laid it down on a block, chopped his hand off, wrapped him up, sent him on his way. he had stolen. And this was like the third time. Shoo. Do you know what that does? Every time you're about to steal and you've seen something like that, what is that? That is a deterrent. You want to know why we have no deterrent to any crime in America today? We're going to let you back out anyway. We're going to let you back out. South side of Chicago, set side 247 people shot weekend before last. Cops were on a stand-down order from the mayor saying, listen, that is they're living in an expression, so y'all stay back. They're expressing themselves. See? When we live in such a chaotic society, it's just as the scribes and Pharisees. Now I'm holding on to what I'm going to do regardless of what. And Jesus is talking about marriage, the same thing. It's the same way. Listen, it begins in the heart. It doesn't begin with the act. It begins in the heart. You can put on everything else that you want to, and we go on and we can discuss marriage, divorce, and remarriage because it's in there. Matthew 19, it's in there. Ephesians, it's in there. There is a place for if the divorce comes. There are 2 reasons for divorce. Boom, boom. And there's a reason for remarriage. All of that. But he's talking about the heart. He's talking that it's already in the heart. There again, well, if I've committed adultery in my mind, I might as well go ahead and do it in the act. No, that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying they're both going to be judged. They're both going to be judged. So you cannot live by the law. Now, let's close with this, the rounding up of this whole idea of Jesus didn't hate the Pharisees, but he hated what they interpreted the scripture to be. He hated it because they took out heart and they took out the mind and only go for the law. Did you know in 1993, I read a story that 2 apartments caught on fire, downtown Jerusalem, Orthodox. A man ran to his rabbi, who lived in that particular apartment, but across the street, and he asked his rabbi if it would violate the Sabbath if he were to call the fire department. Because it's when you call, you're creating an electrical charge, that's considered work. It took the rabbi 30 minutes to determine in his mind if he thought that he could go ahead and make the call to the fire department. By the time they did that, 3 more apartment complexes caught on fire. 1993, downtown Jerusalem, called Germantown. Seriously? Are you so much hung to this law that you would let another person's house burn? What did Jesus say about that all along? Forget the law. Do what you got to do right now. Because the law is a picture of grace. Now, Jesus did one thing that no other human being did. He fulfilled it. He obeyed the law. He was completely obedient to it. No other human in history did that. He fulfilled it, every bit of it. Every bit of him. In the prophecies, he is the promised one. And the penalty of the law, all these penalties back there in Deuteronomy, Jesus paid that penalty upon the cross. And when he paid the penalty on the cross, the law was settled. And we go to Jesus Christ for our justification. Why? Because he's paid the price and he was perfect. So when it comes to murder, money, and marriage, it all begins in the heart. You have what you have by the grace of God. And when we destroy what God gives to us, there is a judgment to pay. The word rakah, if you say, if you call somebody that rakah, it's a non-translatable word. That's why they just kept it in the Hebrew, rakah. It's like absolute contempt. If you're an Arkansas Razorback, it would be like, how do you hook the horns? Is that how you do that? Is that how you hook them horns? Yeah, okay. It's that. That's rakah. Meaning what? We hate the horns. There are other finger symbols that you can use. Rakah. Contempt. Bonehead, idiot, moron. So the writers of the King James Bible leave rakah. It's contempt. So what does Jesus say? He said, listen, it's not just the idea or the concept of killing somebody. It's the contempt that you have in your heart. So listen to this little Matthew study about the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, all the way up to blessed are you when you are persecuted and reviled for every evil thing spoken about. Great is your reward in heaven. And he looks at the Pharisees and he starts in. Don't be a Pharisee. Don't compare your life to any other person saying, well, I'm better than they are. That's what a Pharisee does. The world is full of Pharisees, are they not? People look down on other people because they are not like us. In fact, all of this new wokeism is attempting to say that Christianity is such a racist thing, that we look down on people because they don't act like we like. Oh, if they could only see the inside of our place, the inside of our hearts, and what we want to do and try to do and help to do for other people. What you're doing all the time, then they would understand that a believer in Jesus Christ opens the door of our heart and opens these 10 glass doors, not just every Sunday, but to whoever has a need. Regardless if you think like we do, believe like we do, doesn't matter. It all begins in the heart. How is your heart today? Now, I'm not committing murder. I'm not stealing money. My marriage, done. How's your heart? Let's stand together. How's your heart? A hero is someone too scared to run off. They just stay and do what they want to. And we see heroes coming on the scene today that are just people doing things that maybe just too scared to run off. I'm telling you, the most difficult thing in the world to do is to be faithful. It's hard. It's hard to be faithful. It's hard to be faithful to Christ. Hard to be faithful to one another. Hard to be faithful to being in church. Hard to be faithful in giving. Hard to be faithful in our friendships. Hard to be faithful in our love. It's just hard to be faithful. Why? Because faithfulness is difficult. And all these Pharisees could do every time Jesus opened his mouth was, but look what we do. Look what we do. And people see us do it. And it's the law, and we're obeying it. There is no law that you're going to be able to obey. You're going to break it. I'm going to break the law sometime today, I promise you. You will too. You'll break the law. Something in anger will spew out of your mouth, or you'll be 10 miles over the speed limit. But it's an amazing thing how you may hold everybody else to those tenets of the law, but give yourself slack. Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. Jesus said, look, guys, murder doesn't start here. It starts with the heart. He said, because if you hate somebody, the hate word alone that's what creates. Our federal government about 20 decided to have a thing called hate crimes. If you kill someone and they determine it's a hate crime, it's a stiffer penalty. Well, isn't all murder hate crime? Isn't all sin a hate crime? Isn't every act or every thought that we have about someone else, isn't it a hate crime? The scariest thing in this culture today is how callous we've become to everyone else who does not think like we think. And how unwilling we are. Twitter said last month there'll be no Lord's Prayer on Twitter. Why? Because it does not fulfill meet our expectation of community standard. I get that. I guess all those naked women y'all have on there, that does it. So we're angry at all these platforms that are telling us what's right and what's wrong. We know better. So I'm telling you, it's getting harder and harder not to be pessimistic and very caustic in all of our actions toward one another. A little lady came to our front door holding 2 babies. We were living in the home of hope. Almost 4,000 square foot home. 5 bedrooms. And there I counseled people through the day. We would receive people and they would live with us. She stood at the door. Both of her babies had been beaten. She was black and blue. Every part of me, in fact, before the sheriff left, every part of me wanted to just go get a gun and take that person's life. So even though I may be right, my mind was thinking the wrong thing. Every one of you in this room, every one of you men in this room said, you hurt one of my babies, you hurt my wife, you are going to answer and you are going to pay a price. And I get that. And I think that's what we're supposed to be. That's what God's created us to be. But I am telling you, the violence in our mind is what's displaying in our streets today that has run rampant because we cannot control our emotions. How's your heart today? It all begins with the heart. It all begins with the mind. Who are you mad at? Who are you so angry at that you'd like to see them hurt? Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. If this is a day you say, oh, Father, I need to renew my spirit in you. I need to revive my heart in you. Because of my attitude, I've become like a Pharisee. I'm looking at everybody, judging everybody else's actions, judging what they're doing, what they're thinking, how they're saying it, and not looking at my own. That's all he's saying about the Pharisee. Let's just stop and take a moment. Maybe this is the day that you need to come to Jesus Christ. You need to drop it all, lay it all at this altar and say, I give you my life today. Coming to Jesus Christ because he fulfilled the law. He obeyed it. He paid the price for you that you can be saved, that you can come. Maybe this is the day you really need to intercede for others. And folks, I tell you, it is serious praying time for others right now. If you have someone on your heart that's sick or that's in need, great spiritual need, why don't you come and pray for them right now?